to all. Today's office is Nedarim Daf Nun Test. We are starting the top line at the end of the line. And today's daf is sponsored Lili Nishmas Mars Miriam Sarah Bas Yaakov Maisha Her Neshama should have an Aliyah and Lili Nishmas Rabbi Yechmil Mordechai Ben Reb Chaim his Neshama should have an Aliyah. And we concluded the Gemara is still discussing what the halacha is regarding the status of something usher that was planted and the new growth that grew beheter, such as a Shemitah onion that was planted in the 8th year, or a branch with arla fruit that was grafted onto a non-arla tree. On Nun Zayed Amabeis, a rye was brought in the name of Rav Yanai from a case of a truma onion that was planted, that the new onion does not have the din of truma. So we see the entire onion, including the original one, takes on the status of the new thing that grew, and this works by way of bittul. The new growth is mevatel the original. Now the Gemara says, Masav Ram Bar Chama asks the following question from our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says, Kainam pears elu alai. A person said, Kainam these fruits on me. Kainam hein alpi. Kainam hein lifi. So also it's also for him to have something that these things are exchanged for, or something that grows from it. Let's say he says, Shani oichav shani tayim. It's also for me to taste it, or it's also for me to eat it. He's allowed to eat something that's exchanged for it, or that grows from it. And this is only b'davar shezari kala, with something that the original seed decomposes. The original thing that's planted is going to completely decompose in the ground. Aval b'davar she'ein zari kala, if the thing that was planted, for example an onion, is not going to decompose in the ground, afil gdulei gdulin asurin, so even something that grows from something that grew from this is going to be usher. But we see from here, from the fact that something that grows from it is still going to be usher, that this new growth is not going to be mavatal the original. Actually, it takes on the status of the original, and since the original thing was usher, the thing that grew from it is also usher. Some Rabbi Abba answers for Rabbi Yanai. Shani kainam, the case of kainam is different. Hayel v'ibai mitchel alayhu, since if he wants, he could be shayel on his kainam, meaning he could be shayel on his neder and take away the status of isser from this thing. So havalahu kedavar sheyesh lematirin, therefore it turns into something that's considered a davar sheyesh lematirin, ve'ein batal b'raiv, and it's not going to be batal b'raiv like we spoke on Nun Ches Amud Aleph on the top. But now the Gemara asks on this question, Hare Truma, what about Truma? Dibai mitchel Allah, that if a person wants to be shayel on Truma, he could be shayel on it, meaning if he makes something Truma, he can now take away its status of Truma, and that seemingly makes Truma into something which is a davar sheyesh lematirin, ubatli b'raiv, but nonetheless Truma will be batal b'raiv. Then we have a Mishnah, saw Truma tmeya shenafel pachas mea chulin. If a saw of Tamei Truma fell into less than 100 of chulin, so terakiv, the whole thing has to be left to rot. That's because there's no bittul. But what do we learn from here? Halameya, if this saw of Truma tmeya fell into 100 saw of chulin, tale, so it seems that there will be bittul. So you see the Truma does have bittul, even though it's a davar sheish lematirin. Again, we're understanding the Truma is a davar sheish lematirin because you could be shayel on his Truma. So Gemara says, no, Amri, they said, but Truma biyad kain askinon. That Mishnah is talking about Truma that's already in the hands of the kain. He can't be shayel on it. It's a Yisrael that has the Truma before he gives it to the kain. He could be shayel on its status of Truma and remove that status. But once the kain gets Truma, he can't be shayel on it. So that means that once the kain has it, it's considered a davar she'ein lematirin, and therefore there's bittul. Ask the Gemara, if that's really so, ema seifa. Let's say the seifa of that Mishnah, im haisa tahira, if the Truma that fell into the chulin was tahar, timachar lekayin. So then the whole mixture should be sold to the kayin. Now if this Mishnah is talking about a case where this Truma and chulin mixture is already in the hands of a kayin, so why would the Mishnah say sell it to a kayin? A kayin already has it. So Gemara says you're right. It is talking about that it's by Yisrael, but it's a unique situation. We're talking about a situation where Yisrael has this truma, but he wasn't the one that separated this truma. It wasn't his produce originally. This is truma that fell to him from his grandfather who was a kain. His mother's father who was a kain got truma. Then his grandfather died, so he, the Yisrael, yarshined his grandfather's truma. So in this situation, he can't be shayel on its status of truma. That's because it was already given to a kain, and it makes sense that the Mishnah says he should sell it to a kain because he can't do anything with it. Ask the Gemara, that still doesn't make sense because Vakatani Seifa, the Seifa that Mishnah says Timacher lekayin chutz midmei aisasa, that this truma mixture should be sold to a kain except for the value of that saw of truma that fell in. But if this truma is owned by Yisrael, then inherited it from his grandfather who was a kain, why is he not allowed to include in the cost of this truma mixture the value of that truma that had fallen in? That truma belongs to him and he's allowed to sell it to the kain. So from the fact that the Mishnah says that when he sells this truma mixture to the kain, he's not allowed to include the value of that saw that fell in, unless we were still talking about the original Yisrael that separated this truma, and it was by him that this mixture happened, so that Yisrael has to sell it to a kain, but he's not allowed to include the cost of that saw of truma that fell in, because that saw of truma has to be given to a kain, because that's the original truma. So bottom line, what do we see from this Mishnah? That this Yisrael that owns the truma could be shayel on the truma and remove its status, and still nonetheless there's going to be bittul. But why is that so? It's a davar sheish lematirin. We've been understanding that a davar sheish lematirin does not have bittul. So Gemara answers that we have a different distinction distinction between kainamos and truma. Ela rather we should say the bishlema kainamos mitzvah l'shuli alein. When we're dealing with a kainam, which is a neder, there's a mitzvah to be shayil on that neder. Mishum Rabbi Nassan, based off what Rabbi Nassan said. Dam Rabbi Nassan call a neder anyone that makes a neder ki'ilu bana bama. It's as if he built a bama, which is a private mizbech that a carbon is brought on, and for the most part, bamas were usher. Ma'amakaima, it's someone that keeps his neder and he's not shayil on the neder, he remains with his neder ki'ilu matir aleha. It's as if he brings a carbon on that bama, which is even worse than building the bama. Whereas truma, my mitzvah l'shuli Allah. Truma, what mitzvah is there to be shayil on the truma? In other words, what's the answer? So in order for something to be considered a davar sheish lamatirin and memela, it will not have betel, it has to fit into one of two categories. Either it eventually will become mutter on its own, such as chadash, it becomes mutter after the second day of Pesach, or it fits into the category that one is encouraged to remove the isser from it, such as in the case of a neder. As we just said, Rav Nassan says that a person is encouraged to remove the isser from this thing. So then it gets the status of a davar sheish lamatirin, and memela will not have betel. However, truma is not going to become mutter on its own, and even though he could be shayil on it, he's not supposed to. So memela, it's not considered davar sheish lamatirin, and therefore truma will have betel. And the Gemara continues discussing this case. Gufa, we had mentioned previously, this is on Nun Zayin and Beis. Rabbi Yochanan had said, litra b'tzalim shetikna, a litra of onions, which is a measurement of onions. He was mataking them, he took of all the trumas ha'maisros, v'zara, and it was planted, and now new stuff grew, mesaseres l'fikula, the entire thing has to have maiser taken off of it. Now Yosef Rava v'ka'amar l'hashmaitza, so Rava was saying this over. Not only Rav Chizah told Rava, man sais l'chol Rabbi Yochanan Rabcha, who's going to listen to you and Rabbi Yochanan your Rebbe? Not that Rabbi Yochanan was Rava's Rebbe, it's just that since he was quoting Rabbi Yochanan, Rav Chizah is saying that Rabbi Yochanan is his Rebbe. So who's going to listen to this shita of yours? Heter shebehen lehechan halach. Where did their heter go? These onions were planted and they were completely mutter to eat. They had all the trumas and maisers taken off of them, and he could have cut them up and put them in his salad. Instead, he decided to plant them. So why are you saying that the new onion that grows from there is completely chayav and meiser? Some of the onion that's here is still part of the original onion that was planted, and that original onion was not chayav and meiser. So where did that heter go? So Amalei Rava told him, Milay Tanan de Kavasa, don't we have a Mishnah that's similar to this? And we quoted this Mishnah on yesterday's daf as well. But Salam Shiatu Alem Geshamim, 6th year onions that rain fell on them in the 7th year during the Shemitah year, but simchu, and they sprouted. Notice on on top, Im Hayu Alan Shalohen Shchairin, if the leaves that grew are black, which means they're dark, Asurin, so they're Asur, that's because we say that they got their nourishment from the ground, and that would turn them into Shemitah onions. Hayriko, however, if these leaves that grew were light green, they were pale green, mutarin, so then they're mutter, because it means they did not get nourishment from the ground, they only got nourishment from the onion itself. Now here's Rava's proof. Why is it that when the leaves that grew are dark, the whole thing becomes asur? Why do we say, where did their heter go? The original onion was a non-Shemitah onion, and we still have some of that original onion here, so why are we saying that the entire onion is asur? It must be that heter does disappear, and the entire onion takes on the din of the new growth. And the same thing when a regular onion is planted, the new thing that grew is chayv and meiser, and memelo, the original part of the onion that's still there, is also chayv and meiser. So Amalei Rav Chizah responded to him, Mi savris al ikr katani? Do you really think that Mishnah that's discussing Shemitah is talking about the ikr, the original onion? Adei safas katani asurin. When the Mishnah says that it's asur, we're referring to the new leaves that grew, not to the original part of the onion. We ask, if that's really so, then what's Reb Shimon Gamliel coming to tell us? What does that mean, Reb Shimon Gamliel? The Tanya, we have a brayso. Reb Shimon Gamliel says, and he is commenting on this Mishnah, Hagadol b'chiyuv chayiv, Hagadol b'pater pater. Something that grows in a state of chiyuv, meaning there's a chiyuv of beer of this thing on Shemitah, so it's chayiv in beer. Something that grows in a state of patur of beer, so it's pater from beer. Now what's Reb Shimon Gamliel coming to comment? Tanakama nami hachi amar. The Tanakama of this Mishnah is clearly telling us the same thing that Reb Shimon Gamliel is telling us. So my answer is no. Kulam asnisim Reb Shimon Gamliel katanila. The whole Mishnah is Reb Shimon Gamliel, meaning it's not just the brayso which is Reb Shimon Gamliel, which is commenting on the Mishnah. Mishnah as well is Reb Shimon Gamliel. And va'akan lo shamis leila Reb Shimon Gamliel deloi katarach. Up until now, we only knew from Reb Shimon Gamliel that the new growth doesn't change the original thing that was planted. That's only when there was no tircha, meaning when the person didn't put any effort into planting it, meaning when it grew on its own. But in a situation where the person was tereach, he did put effort into planting it, meaning he physically took it and planted it, it didn't just grow on its own, so then we will say that there's betel. As the Gemara, is that really true that whenever the person, he put effort into it, he planted it, so all of a sudden there's going to be betel? But we have a case that's not like that. We have a situation also in yesterday's Gemara, where we had this litra of meiser, which was tevel. Again, what was this meiser that was tevel? It was meiser rishon that was given to a Levi. The Levi failed failed to take off Trumas Meiser and give it to a Kayin, and he planted it, so it has a status of Tevel, but it also has a status of Meiser. In that case, he was Terach, he did plant it. And what did we say over there? V'katani, v'oisa litra Meiser al makam achel v'chashbain. That the entire crop that grows from this litra has to be Meiser like regular, and that original litra of Meiser, which was Tevel, that was planted, still needs to have Trumas Meiser taken off of it. So we see from here that even though he did put the effort in, he was Terach to plant it, there's no bittul, and then that original litra of Meiser Tevel still needs to have the Trumas Meiser taken off of it. So my answer is no. Shani Gabi Meiser is different. The Amar Kra, the pasuk regarding Meiser says Aser ta Aser v'Gomer, and we have this double lashon of Aser ta Aser. What does that teach us? That even though something already had Meiser taken off of it, once it's planted and it regrows, it needs to have Meiser taken off of it again, which in essence means that the new growth is mavatal the original thing that was planted, because even though the original thing that was planted had Meiser taken off of it already, this new thing that grew, which includes some of the original thing, still needs to have Meiser taken off of it. However, that only applies in certain situations. That Terazari enchi, Isur Leizari enchi. People usually plant something which is mutter, not something which is usr. Meaning, people usually plant something which already had Meiser taken off of it. So that's what the pasuk is referring to. That if a person planted something that already had Meiser taken off of it, this new thing needs to have Meiser taken off of it again. However, if a person plants something which is usr, such as what we were just discussing, Meiser Tevel, so over there the new growth is not going to be mavatal the original thing, and that original thing still is going to be chayav in Meiser. And we continue. Gufa, this is another case that was mentioned on Nun Zayin Amud Beis. Amar Chanina Terta, Amar Yanai, Batzal Shal Truma Shenitai, a Truma onion that was planted, V'Rabu Gidulav Ali Karai, and the new growth grew more than the original thing. Mutter, it's mutter, and it's not considered Truma. As the Gemara remember, does it mean to say the Gidulei Samacham and Alpha on top, Heter Malanas Isser, that something Heter that grows is going to be Mala, is going to be Mavatal, the Isser thing that it comes from? That can't be. V'Hatanan, we have a mission that says Gidulei Truma, Truma. Something that grows from Truma is considered Truma. So Gemara says no, but Gidulei Gidulan Kamrinan. We're talking about something that grows from something that grew from Truma, then it's going to be mutter. As the Gemara Hanami Tanina that we also learned, Gidule Gidulin, Chulin. Something that grew from something that grew from Truma is going to have a status of Chulin. So what's Rabbi Chanina Terta telling us b'shem Rabbi Yanai? So we have another attempt, Hakamash Milan. What's Rabbi Yanai teaching us? Afilu b'davar she'ein zari kala. Even with something that the original thing does not decompose in the ground, that which grows from it is going to be mutter. As Gemara Batanan, we have a mission that says, Hatevel, if Tevel was planted, Gidulav Mutarin, that which grows from it is mutter. B'davar she'zari kala, this is with something that the original thing planted decomposes. Aval davar she'ein zari kala, but with something that the original seed does not decompose, Gidule Gidulan Asurin. So even something that grows from something that grew from this Tevel is going to be Asur. So our answer is this is Rabbi Yanai's Chiddush. Ribuya durabu Gidulan Ali Karei mutter kamash malan. The Chiddush is that the new thing that grew was more. It was a riboy. It exceeded the original thing that was planted, and the male, since it exceeded it, it's able to be mevatel it. And that's Rabbi Yanai's Chiddush. Hajan Allah Chanodim and Ayarek, Malzdar for finishing the 7th parak of Maseches Nedarim. Just like we were zechah to finish this parak together, we should be zechah to finish the Masechta together and all of Shas together. We're going to stop here for the day, pick up tomorrow with a brand new parak. For now, everyone should have a wonderful
day.